Welcome back to another episode of Scoreboard Cinema, our sports and film podcast. For this episode, we decided we should keep our run of more independent and lesser known films going, such as Dark City and the other movies we reviewed. And so today we're going to look at this movie called The Dark Knight, directed by Christopher Nolan. Obviously, I'm kidding. This is probably the most famous movie that's ever come out in my lifetime. And we're still going to continue our reviews of cult movies and the other weird and wonderful movies in cinema. But expect more summer blockbusters to come out soon. And with that out of the way, why so serious? Dark Knight, up next. All right, so this is The Dark Knight. So we got to be careful. These are probably the two biggest fan bases of all time. We got comic book superhero movie fans and Christopher Nolan fans. So this probably comprises like 70% of the film community right here.
Film bros. I think this was like the first big superhero movie that I can remember when I was young. And I remember like I wasn't allowed to see this movie when it first came out, and I was a huge Batman fan. So that was something different, knowing that all the other previous Batman movies that had come before it were mostly like campy and a little goofy, like the Joel Schumacher Batman movies. And then you have the Tim Burton ones, which are still campy, but a little bit more like gothic because it is that Tim Burton style. But this was the first Batman series that was really like gritty and actually like somewhat realistic, or like pretty realistic as it goes for superhero movies. But this was honestly, when I was younger, none of these Christopher Nolan Batman movies appealed to me at all. I don't know if it was just because it wasn't like the cartoons or the comics, which was what I was reading when I was younger, but it kind of took me a while to get immersed or really interested to check out the Nolan Batman movies. So I don't know, like, did you watch this for the first time when you were young?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't watch this when it came out though. I also wasn't allowed to watch this when I was younger. I did see Batman Begins though, but that's like admittedly on a rewatch of both of those movies. There's a significant difference I feel in tone between how Batman Begins progresses and how The Dark Knight starts out. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I just think they're two completely different movies. But yeah, in terms of like superhero movies, one of the main things I wrote about in my notes is like 2008 is probably just like the absolute shift of cinema as we know it, at least for a decade. Obviously we know 2010 cinema had a ton of prestige and independent projects that got all the awards and topped the critics lists and stuff like that. But it was here that both Marvel and DC Comics picked their stride up with their own successful projects. Obviously, this came out in 2008, and Marvel had Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. And from then on, I mean, superhero movies really just dominated that following decade. And I think it's really a combination of things. First of all, I think that CGI had never been better. Famously, the year after this, James Cameron did Avatar, which was a fantastic display of spectacular special effects and sort of showed what you could do if given the budget. And obviously the fact that Iron Man and The Dark Knight made these massive returns on their box offices sort of greenlit a lot of these studios to be like, we want to fund these. We know they'll make cash and we want to wow our audience. And obviously Dark Knight and Iron Man themselves are different films. They're both different stylistically in terms of tone. They're different in terms of just like CGI. Obviously, like The Dark Knight, one of the things that I'm going to talk about, how I respect it, is it's very practical for most of it. But I think just overall, the presentation of this movie is, let's remember, the action of it, the look of the movie, and all of that is just what makes it stand above. And I think that this sort of let the cat out of the box, because superhero movies were big before this. There was the Superman movies in the 70s and 80s. Those made a lot of money. There was obviously the Tim Burton Batman that you talked about. And, there was the Sam Raimi Spider-Man and the X-Men series that came out. But when those came out, those were still mostly niche appeal, and they weren't like total complete blockbusters. I feel like after this happened, people were just totally on board with superhero movies. And obviously it lasted for, it had a 10, 12-year run attached to it. So I think you can draw some precursors, like I mentioned, but I think this is sort of the crossroads where superhero movies went from just being this niche film genre to a phenomenon, quite honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was the year that kicked off Marvel officially, I think, apart from that Hulk movie with Ed
Ed
Norton. I think
Norton.
that might have been the year before, possibly, or a couple of years before.
I think they tried to kick it off, and then
Yeah.
Ed Norton wasn't quite putting butts in seats.
Yeah, Ed Norton wasn't cutting it, so they had to switch over to Mark Ruffalo. But anyway, I'm I was always surprised also, just like thinking back. So they got Christopher Nolan to do the Batman trilogy. And then after that, we don't really get like a prestige director to take on a superhero movie. We get, I think the next DC big franchise to come after this was probably Superman with Henry Cavill. And they were having, I think it was Zack Snyder was doing most of that stuff.
He did the Justice League movies. He did the Suicide Squad movies. I know that James Gunn also stepped in
Yeah.
eventually. He was, I guess those were the two main guys going
Yeah.
along with it.
But I'm surprised they never got like another like high echelon director to do superhero movies again. I'm surprised they didn't get like Denis Villeneuve to direct
Yeah,
or like David Fincher, honestly, he could have done a Batman movie. I guess just because they're kind of like more comic book style, a lot of directors aren't willing to take that on. I know Martin Scorsese famously said like he hates the Marvel movies and that they really have no substance in terms of like cinema. Yeah, this whole Batman trilogy by Christopher Nolan is very unique. And it is interesting. Batman Begins is it's not campy, but it's more goofy compared to The Dark Knight that really amps up like the
very
grittiness and the
goofy.
realism. And then The Dark Knight Rises is also kind of similar in that vein. But it seems like honestly The Dark Knight it is an action movie for sure, but it's also a crime movie. I mean, it follows Harvey Dent, who's one of the main characters. His whole storyline's just like a crime movie character storyline. The Joker's just like a terrorist, basically. Like he's not really even a
Yeah,
comic book villain.
anarchist.
Yeah, he's an anarchist. He's kind of similar like to the guy from No Country for Old Men in the way that you have
Sugar.
no idea where the hell these people came from. Like they're just completely unknown anarchists that are just causing absolute mayhem for like an undisclosed reason.
Yeah, I was reading that, and I believe they said somewhere in the production for Dark Knight, it was Christopher Nolan and somebody else. It might have been the writer or the producer. But basically, what they said was that they thought that the origin stories sometimes undermined the mystique that some of these people had. They
Yeah.
referenced like Darth Vader, for example. Like the less you knew about him, the better he became. But then once the prequels came out and you knew his backstory, in their opinion, they felt that the character wasn't as intimidating as they once were.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair for like a lot of movie characters. Not knowing their background always makes them more interesting. I mean, when I think of other movie characters, like you got Anton from No Country for Old Men. Another similar one is I don't think you've seen Skyfall, the
No,
James
I
Bond
haven't.
movie, but the villain in there played by Javier Bardem. He's also similar in that way where he's like you don't really know what his motives are. I mean, you eventually find out in the end, but throughout the whole movie it's kind of unknown and he's just like an anarchist. That like when I saw Skyfall for the first time, I totally thought that movie was inspired by The Dark Knight. There's like a ton of similarities, even though it's a spy movie, because you have like the villain that's an anarchist and you don't really know what their background is, and that villain kind of had similarities to the Joker. Like he had a laugh and he was just kind of like goofy at times, but also intimidating. And a lot
Yeah.
of the like rise and fall of the plot was similar to The Dark Knight. But this movie, The Dark Knight, is probably like one of the most influential movies that has come out in the past 20 years. Yeah, I mean, this was like you said, a huge churn in cinema and a big tone shift from campy movies, campy action and campy superhero movies to much darker and realistic stuff. Like now we have Dune and properties like that, which probably wouldn't have been made in the 2000s because a lot of stuff was more less serious. So I think this really paved the way for a lot of like more serious blockbusters, also probably like Mad Max as well, too.
Yeah. I mentioned this in the intro, but I wanted to sort of bring the question to you. You obviously talked about the influence of The Dark Knight and sort of what it's done for movies in the last 10 to 15 years. Um, so I was trying to think of the most famous movies that have come out in my lifetime. And I really couldn't think of one that was above The Dark Knight. Like obviously you could point to like the Star Wars movies or like
Mhm.
maybe the Indiana Jones movies you could argue. But thinking of like a movie like I don't want to say independent of a franchise because obviously The Dark Knight is part of the Batman universe,
Yeah.
but I can't think of a movie that's ever been like sustained this much acclaim and excellence and notoriety throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at other movies that have come out in our lifetime that are about as popular, a lot of it's Christopher Nolan stuff, honestly. He's the biggest director of our time, like of the past 15, 20 years. He did like Inception's definitely up there. I don't know exactly how much it made, but probably close to this, and it came out at a similar time. Interstellar's probably up there. A lot of the Marvel stuff is probably up there, like the Avengers movies.
Yeah, but I feel like with that one, I was thinking of the Marvel too when I thought about this question, but I feel like when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's like all of the movies together are what people think of. They don't think of like one specific
Yeah, that's
movie.
fair.
Like people are, I guess like the Avengers was massive when it came out, but I don't know if it, I still don't think it has the sustaining impact that a movie like this has.
The movies that appeal to the most people, at least as of recent, are superhero movies, and there hasn't been a superhero movie with an actor of Christian Bale's caliber. There hasn't been a superhero movie with the actor of Heath Ledger's caliber, probably in terms of villains. Obviously, we didn't get to see Heath Ledger live out his career, and he probably didn't even get to his full potential, honestly. He was so young when he passed. But I mean, Heath Ledger gives probably the best villain performance of all time. And if you want to say that it's not, you still probably have it in your top five or top 10 at the minimum. I mean, when you look at the Marvel movies, the thing about them is none of them have like a compelling or memorable villain besides Thanos. Like, who
Yeah, but
else?
the thing with Thanos is that like people, that character had like all of these movies to build off of.
Yeah.
It was like, I think he was first displayed in the Avengers post credits, and then you basically had like 7 years to sort of flesh out this character.
Yeah.
Even in Batman Begins, like the only sign of the Joker is that Commissioner Gordon
The
gives
card.
Batman the Joker card. Like that's the only sign of him at all. Even in the new Batman, you at least get like a look at the Joker. You don't even get that in Batman Begins.
Yeah, no, Heath Ledger just comes in and delivers like crazy performance. Like from the second we're introduced to him, he just steals the scene. The scene where they're in the like the under I don't even know, they're in like a meeting room or something. Like
Oh,
the
with the
mobs.
mob with
Yeah.
Lau. Yeah.
You got the Asian dude on the TV set. They're talking to him. They're like Skype. And then the Joker walks in. Like you know when he walks in that this shit's about to go crazy. He just comes in and delivers like heat check after heat check, which is crazy. Like there's no build up to. I mean, there is a little bit, but they're just like go out there, Heath, and do your thing, and he did that shit.
Yeah. I do wonder, like I haven't honestly read up on what would have happened if he survived. I don't know if you read anything. Was he supposed to be in The Dark Knight Rises or was that just
Yeah,
a separate? Okay.
I did read that the scene or when Bane releases all the prisoners from like Blackgate and Arkham Asylum when he's just rioting in the city with everyone. apparently the Joker was like supposed to escape and be part of the final fight. I don't know exactly like how big his role is supposed to be in the
Hmm.
movie, but I'm pretty sure he was supposed to have at least like a cameo.
Okay. Better than Cillian Murphy's cameo in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll talk about him later, but holy
Okay.
shit, talk about like wasted potential in this whole franchise with him.
With Cillian Murphy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a Batman Begins podcast, so I'm not going to dwell over it
yeah.
too much, but I honestly, wow, I was totally let down by his character. Let's go up to Nolan. I would say up until this point, I would say that he was known. Like people knew who he was. I wouldn't quite say he's reached like the all-star status yet.
Mm-mm. No.
Um, Obviously he made waves independently. He made Memento. I believe that made 40 million on a less than $10 million budget.
That's
So
more than I thought.
I think I don't know if it was counting like re-releases, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a pretty successful movie. Yeah, 40 million on a $9 million budget. And then he did Insomnia, which made decent bucks too. But I mean, people weren't predicting what he was gonna be. And what I had heard about with getting him on board in the first place was that so Schumacher makes Batman and Robin in 97. No surprise, it fucking tanks. I actually haven't seen the movie to be honest, but I know you have. Obviously, it wasn't very appealing. People didn't like it. People didn't like Clooney Batman or Bat Nipples or
All it's
any of
all
that shit.
horrible. There's
Okay.
not a single good thing about that movie. It was just made to sell Happy Meals.
But yeah, so basically the that like tanks all of the momentum that the Batman movies had from Batman Forever, Batman Returns, and obviously the original Tim Burton Batman. And so Warner Brothers were like, all right, well, this is one of our flagship franchises, so we need to have a backup plan here. And so they got one. And obviously where I give credit to Nolan in this regard is like he doesn't treat this like a superhero movie, which was never the case for any of the superhero movies before this. This is much more than a superhero movie. And Batman Begins had elements of that too. It was still a superhero movie at heart, but it had more emotional depth with the characters,
Yeah.
and I give him credit for that. And overall, I would just say that what Christopher Nolan was able to do, transforming this character who was popular, but I mean, still people knew he was a comic book character. He wasn't supposed to be this cinematic wall of fame type character. And yeah, he probably made, I still think it's the greatest superhero trilogy. I don't really know what else could be nominated.
Yeah. I mean, I yeah, there's really I mean like Iron Man maybe.
Nah,
Guardians of the
dude.
Galaxy.
Guardians is Guardians is good, but I mean I can't make a conclusion because I haven't seen Rises, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make a call.
Dark Knight Rises is more in line with Batman Begins to be like it's a better movie than that, but like the
Hmm.
themes, it's more emotional depth to all the characters and more character building. Like, in terms of Bruce Wayne too, it's the movie that focuses the most on Bruce Wayne,
Okay.
which I like. It's good. You'll like it. I think you'll find it better than Begins. Not that Batman Begins is bad, but I think it's clearly the worst by like a good amount. But looking at like the making of Batman films or like canceled Batman films is always like the most interesting in terms of franchises. There were so many times throughout after like Joel Mocker completely fucked up the whole Batman
Schumacher.
situation and got Batman blacklisted from Hollywood. Like no one really wanted to make Batman for a while after seeing what had happened with his Happy Meal toy movies. Um, but I was just reading up on different directors that were attached to Batman at times before Christopher Nolan took over. Like, I don't think Christopher Nolan was not the first choice to take over the Batman franchise. Obviously, he had done Memento, which was successful, but he was the indie director at that time. You have Insomnia, which was like his first big budget movie. And then you have
Begins.
Prestige, which is like
Oh.
a smaller thing, obviously critically acclaimed. And then you have he moves on to the Batman franchise. So he's not like some huge director at the time, but prior to him getting selected to do this franchise, I was reading that Darren Aronofsky actually was considered,
Hmm.
which was in his concept for a Batman movie was so off the wall. It was supposed to be like a very young Batman, like kind of similar to like
Hmm.
the Robert Pattinson take, but even more like messed up. Like he was supposed to be a homeless kid, and Alfred was supposed to be like this black dude that was a mechanic at like a local shop. It was supposed to take place in like Detroit or something, like downtown Detroit. And Batman was like a homeless kid who got mentored by this black mechanic named Alfred. And they would build the Batmobile out of like spare parts from the mechanic shop.
Hmm. I don't
I'm
know
like,
how that
yeah.
would have been interesting. I will say though, I would have loved to see a Darren Aronofsky movie where like the where Scarecrow was the villain.
Oh, that
Because
would have
he's
been, yeah.
so good at like the psychological horror and thriller movies that
Hmm.
I could only imagine what he would have done with that. Like that was my biggest criticism with Nolan. I just think that like he turned Scarecrow into a total bitch.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
I think that if he made that, wow, that would have been interesting. I still think they made the right choice though. All that
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, and I heard also David Fincher too was I think the first choice to do the franchise, but obviously knowing him, he takes like 20-year breaks in between all his movies, and I don't he's not like a guy that'll take a big franchise. He wants to do more of his own thing. Like he was doing probably working on Zodiac at that time, then on to
Yeah.
Gone Girl and Social Network. Like he's more making those movies that he wants to win awards. And I think The Dark Knight definitely won awards, but at
Ledger
that
one.
time, no one was thinking Batman movies were going to ever win awards again after seeing what Joel Schumacher did and tanked the franchise. So, yeah, David Fincher was out. I'm sure there was someone else they were considering. I don't know who it would have been in the mid 2000s to take over a franchise like Batman, but
Uh, would Tony Scott have made a decent Dark Knight?
well, I mean, Man on Fire came out 2 years prior to Batman Begins, and the editing was absurdly bad. So I can only imagine the editing in the Batman movies. I don't want to see it. And if he did Scarecrow, the editing would have like given you a migraine.
I guess like for action directors, I mean, there's always like Michael Bay, but I that would have been a completely different movie. What if like William Friedkin stepped out of his chair? He was still making movies at this point, and he actually
Yeah.
wasn't making very like he wasn't very successful in the 90s, so I'm sure they probably were gonna attach a bigger name, but I feel like he could have pulled something off like this.
Yeah,
Obviously not to the same success, but
I'm not too familiar with Friedkin's like 2000s work. I know just his older stuff, obviously the fan favorite Cruising that we love.
he did Killer Joe in 2010, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I've just seen like
Yeah.
his 80s, 70s stuff. I'm not too familiar with his newer stuff. But I mean, that would have been interesting for sure. But I think like they weren't really, I'm not that Friedkin's an action director. He's done action, but I think they were looking more at like, I mean, Fincher and Nolan aren't really action directors. I
They
mean,
can
no,
though.
they can do it, and Nolan has done it multiple times, but that's not like their hallmark. Like that's not they're not considered in that really action genre. Maybe Nolan is, but I think
Well,
they were looking at more like psychological, like thriller and drama directors to do Batman at that time.
I will say too, like Batman Begins, I don't know what they did differently. I mean, I'm sure the budget was better, but the action from Begins to Rises, holy fucking shit, that's a difference. Like
Yeah.
the action in Batman Begins was ass. I don't know what changed. I think like there's some scenes in Memento, like there's a chase scene in Memento that I always think is super funny because it's like poorly edited
Oh yeah, I
and
know what you're talking about.
yeah. And I just think that like
That scene's hilarious. Like when they're in the car.
yeah, when he's like, "What the fuck?" and then he just scoots off like Christopher Nolan was a shitty action director for a while. He turned it around though. Like credit
Yeah.
to him. Credit to him for turning it around. Obviously in like Tenet has good action. Dark Knight, and I've heard Dark Knight Rises has good action. So
Hmm.
whatever he did, it worked. Whatever whoever said something in his ear, like all the props to you, dude, because that shit sucked. One of the first things that I want to talk about is I appreciated how Batman actually helps people
Yeah.
and goes out of his way to stop them from dying. The whole thing that like pissed me off about Batman Begins was he's so um adamant about his moral code, about
Hmm.
how he's like, I'm never gonna kill anybody, no matter what. But if you watch the chase scenes in Batman Begins, when the cops are chasing him, he's like setting off bombs and traps, and he's like wrecking these buildings,
Yeah.
and like he makes a train fall off the rails and shit like that. And somehow the movie makes us believe that not a single person dies from that.
Yeah, he's definitely responsible for like thousands of deaths in that movie. Like just tons of people dying are his fault.
And he's just trying to like he's so reckless. It's just so frustrating. And I know it's a superhero movie, so you have to suspend some parts of your belief, but I can't for that. Like that's just he's way too reckless and the movie shows it in Batman Begins. So I appreciate here how he actually helps people.
Hmm.
Like for example, when the hostages when they get set up, when they get guns strapped to their hands and they're in clown masks and shit, and Batman has to fight the SWAT members and make sure that they're all safe and sound. I like details like that. I like that he actually follows his moral code that was so hammered into our brains in the first movie. He actually walks the walk this time. So I like that.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, I mean, when you look at like the Superman movies, Superman's just like killing everyone. Like his laser beams going through the buildings and buildings are collapsing. So obviously Superman doesn't give a shit about the well-being of people. But yeah, that is a good point. A lot of times in superhero movies they talk about like their code and how they don't want to kill anyone, but then you have like something where Ben Affleck's playing Batman and he's just like a serial killer. Basically, like he's just killing everyone. The Batmobile has like turrets that come out of it,
Yeah.
and he's just like shooting people. The Ben the I like the Ben Affleck Batman movies because it's different and I respect the take on it, but a lot of Batman diehard fans will be like, that's just like sacrilegious what Ben Affleck's Batman does.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder, uh,
Fuck you.
fuck
I'm
you,
not
but
watching
also
Rebel Moon.
props to you for making Batman a killer because no one else would have the balls to do it. Not that it's a good thing, but
I got to give a shout out to I believe they kept him for the entire trilogy. Wally Pfister.
oh, the cinematographer.
Dude, he well, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I'm a sucker because Batman Begins and Dark Knight both are filmed a majority of their scenes in Chicago. And so he just fucking he makes that shit pop.
Yeah,
Like
no one
he
shot Lower Wacker Drive better than Wally Feister.
yeah, like he just like the action scenes in Chicago and just like all the views of the skyline.
Yeah,
I know you wrote down in your notes, you talk about the heat similarities. I like how in both of those movies they really encapsulate like the setting of their cities. Obviously, heat, it's Los Angeles, so it's a little bit different, but just the color of the city, the
yeah,
framing, um, and obviously they had a way bigger budget than Heat did, so they were able to show a lot more. But man, they show off my city of Chicago, and I fucking love it.
yeah.
So
And there's
shout out to
also like
you.
tons of uses of the color blue. Specifically the scene where Batman's in it's Japan or Shanghai or something
I thought it was Hong Kong or
or
whatever.
Hong Kong, whatever. He's on the skyscraper rooftop, and that shot is one of the best in the movie. I really like it. And honestly, this movie has like the hardest shot in a superhero movie, and maybe one of the hardest shots of all time, where Batman's like standing over the rubble after the building blew up. You
Oh,
know?
when Rachel dies.
Yeah. where
After,
Batman's
yeah.
just like standing over the rubble. That's just like that shot is amazing. That's like the best shot from a superhero movie I can think of. Just like the color of the blue, like navy blue sky in the background. It just that should have been the poster for the movie.
The poster's hard too, though. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie.
No, it is. It is. But like why is the building on fire in the background? Like did
Yeah, I guess
Batman
that
do
doesn't
that?
make sense. I didn't think about that.
Did Batman like start a fire in that building just to put his logo there?
Maybe it's just from the flashlight, from Gary Oldman's flashlight.
Uh, yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but yeah.
It must be like a 1,000,000 watt flashlight to start a fire like that. But yeah, the
Um,
cinematography is super good. And I know Christopher Nolan, I'm pretty sure he's worked with that same guy for like the majority of his movies, at least around this time. I know he did. He shot Inception too. I'm assuming he did like Interstellar. Um,
it said he did. Yeah, he did Inception, Rises, Dark Knight, Prestige, Batman Begins, Insomnia, and Memento.
oh wow. Okay, so he was with him for like his first half of his career then.
Music, obviously, the Joker theme's iconic. The drones, just like escalating the tension of like pretty much any scene he's in. I always love a good score. I'm always a sucker for it. And of
Yeah, Hans
course,
Zimmer
Hans Zimmer
going.
just fucking cooks. I mean, breaking news.
Hans Zimmer
Um,
was in his bag for this one, Dark Knight Rises,
Interstellar.
Inception, and Interstellar, dude. He was just going off. He had to pay rent or something, dude. The rent was due.
Yeah, I mean, like all of the like from a technical perspective, like especially the tertiary stuff, like camera work, score and whatnot, like they're all pretty much home runs. And obviously Christopher Nolan works with a lot of these people frequently, so it's usually a safe bet that they're always going to be good. All right, so yeah, now the two main guys. We're gonna do Bale and
Let's start with Christian Bale.
this is where it gets dicey.
Yeah.
So I love Christian Bale. I think he's a fantastic actor. He's put out some of my favorite movies and some of my favorite performances.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, on a rewatch, first of all, like I'm not breaking any news here, but the accent is just God, it bugs the fuck out of me. I can't get it out of my head. And the worst part about it is that when I watched Batman Begins, I noticed it, but I didn't think that it was like damning and like completely like took me out of the movie. But somehow in The Dark Knight, his accent is worse.
It
I've
is.
talked to my friends about it, and I'm like, how the fuck did it get worse? That's usually not the case with any movie. And I don't know what Nolan did. I don't know why he didn't just like put something on in post production. Because I know that he had test audiences and everything. Like that's what you do before you release a movie.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how in post production you weren't like, yeah, maybe this isn't great. Like, dude, when I was watching the intro scene, I was like, oh, this is a great opening scene. Like, he's fighting the fake Batmans, he's beating the shit out of the Scarecrow and the mob guys. And then, of course, he's just like, I'm not the one wearing hockey pads. I'm like, dude, oh my God. Like,
Yeah, and it's so
God
stupid
damn it,
because it's
dude.
it's not even like that voice he's putting on is gonna like think like it's not really even hiding the Bruce Wayne voice. Like it's not that different. It just sounds like if Bruce Wayne smoked 10 packs a day. That's basically what it is. It's not like at least like when with Ben Affleck's Batman, he had like a voice changer, like modulator, which
I'm
sounded
surprised he didn't have that in this
yeah, like
movie.
he's just like it's so stupid. It's not barely even hiding his voice or like masking his identity. It's just making him sound like he has a problem with smoking.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say he sounds like the cousins in The Simpsons. I don't remember their names, but they're like two chronic lung cancer patients.
He sounds like
Um,
the average person you'd run into outside a Deadwood Tavern. It was
he definitely put down a couple American spirits.
yeah.
I know that for a damn fact. But I think the thing that I don't know if this is why I noticed it in Begins or in Dark Knight compared to Begins, but obviously in this movie he's much more prominent as Batman. I don't know, dude. It's just like that bugs the fuck out of me. And he's still a great Bale, or
Yeah.
he's still a great Wayne, but god
Patrick
damn it,
Bateman.
dude.
He's just playing Patrick Bateman, basically.
Yeah, I noticed that more in Begins. In Dark Knight, it's still there, but in Batman Begins, there's one scene where I'm like, that's literally Patrick Bateman's haircut, and that's his suit too.
Yeah. Well, by Rises, it's mostly gone. Like
Yeah,
he's doing he's got the Bruce Wayne fleshed out and he's got it unique to his style. But like, yeah, through these, he's just you can tell in Batman Begins, he spent way more time on the actual like Batman voice, whatever he was trying to do, and like crafting that whole persona and training and bulking up, and didn't put as much time into the Bruce Wayne part of it. He just took what he had known from American Psycho and just incorporated that into his thing. And he's like, give me the same makeup, give me the same hairstyle, and I'll do the same thing. Obviously, he's not as like vulgar or obscene as he is in American Psycho, but
yeah,
it's
it's a different thing.
very similar performance, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. But it would be nice to have seen the performance be a little bit more unique.
Yeah, and this is also not Bale's fault, but I'm just gonna point this out. I don't like the costume either. Like, I just
Yeah,
don't like the Batman look. It
in
looks
the
so
dark,
bad.
when he's in the dark and the shadows, it looks fine. But when he's like the scene at the beginning where Commissioner Gordon's like in a bank vault or something and Batman walks in, I'm like, no way. Dude, it looks so fucking bad. It looks like some dude just walked in his Halloween costume that he got from like Spirit Halloween or something.
I don't know if you rewatched this scene, but there's a scene with Harvey Dent, Gordon, and Batman. It's where they all meet at the rooftop.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And he just it's basically just Harvey Dent and Commissioner Gordon talking.
Hmm.
And Batman's just standing there, like completely straight like a statue. And it's bright lights. It's not bright, but like it's well lit. And god damn it, he just looks so stupid. I can't get enough of how bad he looks. It reminds me of in Apocalypse Now when Marlon Brando showed up way too overweight. And so
Oh
for
yeah.
like a majority of his scenes, Coppola just had to film him in the dark. That's what I think Nolan did with this movie because god
Yeah, he wanted to
damn,
hide that shit.
it's so bad. Like that's no fault of Bale's, by the way, but I just had to point that out.
Yeah, the Batman costume that Travis Scott wore on Halloween a couple years ago might have been better. Bat Roach or whatever they called him. That was a more accurate suit for Batman than whatever the hell he's wearing in here. And he just Christian Bale like doesn't even fit into the suit right. It just
Well,
doesn't look right.
I was gonna note that too. I heard that he was less physically strong in this movie as compared to Batman Begins, because obviously in Batman Begins you see his physique. You're like, this guy's like jacked.
Yeah.
I know in this movie he puts on less weight, and I don't know if that's why they had to change the costume out, but damn, for such a committed physical actor, I was a little disappointed about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And unfortunately, out of like the majority of Batman movies I've seen in the modern era, this is the worst Batman suit. Like I'll take it over the George Clooney one, but dude, this
The
this
bat
suit kind of
nipples.
sucks. Yeah, this suit sucks. Like give me the Robert Pattinson suit over it. Give me
Yeah.
the Ben Affleck suit over it. Give me the Michael Keaton suit over it, honestly. Maybe the Val Kilmer one. This I think I don't mind the actual suit. I think it's the mask and like his
No, the
head.
mask looks shitty too.
It's so bad. I don't I don't know what they were thinking. Like I know they're obviously going for realism, but like they went too realistic to the point where it looks like something you could have picked up at the thrift shop. It's supposed to be like military grade armor, but it looks like it's made out of like styrofoam. It's bullshit, dude. Lucius Fox could have done better. Come on now.
Yeah. I guess the budget was gone. They just didn't have anything left to spend. They got that Matt Schaefer treasurer funds.
Yeah.
Um but yeah. Oh, also, I'm just gonna say this. Like the the Bruce Wayne in this movie, he's kind of a bitch. Yeah, I said it. Like especially I'm harking back to a scene where uh it's just him and Rachel, and he's like, Gotham City has the hero they need. I want to make it work. I'm like, dude, she's about to get married to Harvey Dent. Like, get the fuck away from her. And also, like, I get it if you still have feelings and shit, but like, dude, you're supposed to be like a 30 something, 20 something. You're not a fucking teenager.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be the Robert Pattinson teenage angsty emotional bitch Batman. Like, I don't know.
I don't know why he's so down bad for her too. She's not even that good looking
She's not even
compared
the
to the
same person,
previous.
dude.
Yeah, Tom Cruise's old wife. Yeah, what a downgrade. Stephen A. Smith said it best. Have you seen that interview with
I
him?
have seen that interview.
Yeah.
She was not it.
She's not all that.
I
Get a
think her
sister.
performance is better though. I will admit. I know that's like apples to apples at that point because obviously they don't get like a tremendous amount of screen time, but I don't know. I think Katie Holmes was just like a pretty face.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal's a good actress, but it's just improper casting, I would have to say. And this movie's very well cast for the most part. I think a lot of the actors and actresses are perfect for their roles. This is the one glaring miscast.
I mean, I have a lot of problems with Bale though.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not gonna absolve him from this either.
and his fighting. I know you talked about the fighting getting better throughout the trilogy, but it's still, in my
I
opinion, it's
said the
still
action.
awful here. He is so stiff. I mean, it looks like I could probably take on Batman in this movie and not really have too much trouble with it. He looks like he's 5'8". He looks like he's moving in slow motion.
That's all. Okay. Bale's 6 flat, so
Okay.
damn,
Yeah,
he's
his fighting
even worse
style is
then.
so weird. He moves in like it's like he's doing karate in slow motion or something. It's so dumb. And he should like easily be able to take the Joker down, which he kind of does, but like still, it's just this is the least physically imposing or intimidating Batman besides Clooney. I'd be more intimidated by Val Kilmer's Batman.
Yeah. I mean, even the thing that bugs me about that too is like in Batman Begins, like he can kick some ass. I know the action itself is bad, but like you can clearly tell he's hitting the gym in Begins, but
Right.
no such thing in this movie. It's a damn shame.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that Bale was inappropriately casted, but maybe he was. And I don't know who else they would have casted at this time, but like he just doesn't scream Batman to me. He could have
Other
done like Iron Man,
2000s.
maybe.
Christian Bale?
Yeah.
Oh, that would have, wow. Talk about what if.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like relatively young 2000s actors though.
I remember
I
reading that
can't really think of one.
Cillian Murphy was originally supposed to, or not maybe supposed to play Batman, but I know he like tried out for it, which is interesting. He did like screen tests for it, and obviously he became Scarecrow. But
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Jake Gyllenhaal got an audition. I mean, he can do the physical stuff too. I mean, you've obviously he just came out with Roadhouse,
yeah.
and he's done movies like Southpaw where he's done some physical transformations. That would have been interesting. Could you could you imagine if he had to kiss Maggie Gyllenhaal though?
Oh, that would be crazy. They're having a reunion of Donnie Darko, I
That would have
guess.
been, oh my God, that would have been fucking crazy.
Dude, they're saying Armie Hammer was supposed to play Batman at one point.
Ooh, actually, that would have been interesting, actually, because he could do that, and he's from a rich family too.
Yeah.
Like he's from the Hammer family. That's an interesting what if too.
Right. You know how I was talking about Darren Aronofsky almost doing a Batman movie? Guess who
Yeah.
was supposed to play Batman in that? This
Uh,
was like a mid 2000s movie where Batman's like a young homeless kid.
Jesus. Shoot. I don't know.
Joaquin Phoenix. He was cast in the movie as Batman. It obviously never got made, but he
I
was
mean,
the choice.
he could have been like the loner Batman. Like I could see him playing the Robert Pattinson type. I know obviously you're saying that movie would have been in Detroit. Interesting. I don't know if it would have worked.
They're saying
Though.
Josh Brolin was an option to play the Ben Affleck Batman. I
I
could
could see that actually.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on to Ledger. There's really not too much for me to say that hasn't been repeated. I mean, he's one of the most psychotic, one of the most fully realized movie villains to ever be adapted from a script. I mean, he's got dark humor, he's a sadist, he's an anarchist, and despite his insistence that he doesn't have a plan, he's clearly a very calculated supervillain.
Yeah.
And he's just way smarter than he appears to be.
And he has some of the greatest quotes. And for some reason, dude, I was watching a video on this. Athletes, especially professional athletes, like love the Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker for some reason. Like they're always posting like inspirational Joker quotes and stuff on their social media. It's like
Like who?
I remember seeing DJ Moore from the Chicago Bears. He posted like a Joker, like why so serious thing. And I know Odell Beckham was obsessed with the Joker when he was back on the Giants in the heydays of his career. Remember he had like the visor that had like the Joker smile on it.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
Like they completely misinterpreted what he's supposed to mean. Like they use his symbol for like chaos as inspiration.
I mean, he's badass, but yeah, that's an odd take.
Are the athletes in Heath Ledger's Joker are like the equivalent of film bros to Tyler Durden. They just completely misinterpreted the message.
That
Yeah,
might just be the CTE talking though too.
it very well could be.
But yeah, speaking of that, I guess we can get onto some other parts about Ledger. So yeah, I just think he's literally afraid of nothing. He's literally so insane that he just doesn't give a fuck about what happens to him. He just wants to send a message. Um, and especially I think part of it, I don't want to just totally shit on Liam Neeson and Cillian Murphy, but compared to their villains in Begins, it's like night and day. It's really just so different. And he's just so calculated and methodical. He murders everyone. He kills politicians. He tests the will and the moral and the ethics of the people of Gotham City. He corrupts the White Knight of Gotham. He corrupts Harvey Dent and turns him into Two-Face. And yeah, like I said, just the amount of chaos he can conjure up in one movie is really quite astonishing.
Yeah, and I already talked about it, but I think what makes him so great is that you don't know like his background. That's my favorite thing about his character is you don't know anything about him, and no one in this movie like knows where he even came from. We never find out. And that's always one of the most compelling things for a villain that makes them great is the unknown. And I'm happy that they did that while also incorporating the elements of like the classic Joker. That's like the clown prince of crime. Like he's cracking jokes throughout the movie. Like he has a lot of funny one-liners. Specifically the scene when he first appears. It's the scene where the mobsters are like sitting around the table and talking
Oh,
to
when he's like, I'm gonna make this pencil
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
disappear.
I
Yeah,
love
that
his
one. Yeah.
delivery in that whole scene. Like he's just like testing the whole room and
He's
like
just walking into the room. He's like, he, ha, ha, ha. He's just being a fucking goofball.
yeah, and he opens like his jacket and there's like grenades and like bombs in there. And they're like, "You think you can steal from us and get away with it or something?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah," or something. I just love his delivery. It's just like he's funny, but it's not focusing on the humor. It's understated humor, which is an interesting take on the Joker. I really like it. But I mean, they did this character perfect. You can't do it any better. I mean, this is your favorite Joker performance, right? Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, people love Joaquin Phoenix. People love Jared Leto.
No, I don't know about that.
I'm kidding. This is obviously the greatest. And I mean the Joker's like he's a prestige character to play now. After this movie, everyone wanted to play the Joker or have their own take on it.
Well, and I think that like for a while, because obviously Jack Nicholson played the first Joker in film, Or
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was in film. I know there was a 60s Batman, but
Yeah, that was
um
goofy.
I feel like a lot of people like, you know, obviously Jack Nicholson is one of the five most famous actors ever, American actors, I should say. But I feel like imagining to take up a role like this must have been so intimidating. Because I mean, even just the casting of Heath Ledger was something that was so chastised by people. People were like, "You're casting the guy from fucking
Brokeback
10 Things I
Mountain.
Hate About You, Brokeback Mountain, A Knight's Tale. You're casting a fucking Australian to play the Joker. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?" And obviously, everybody ate their words. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean that happens every time a new Batman gets casted or a new Batman villain. Like when people saw Ben Affleck, they're like horrible casting. When people saw Robert Pattinson, they said it's horrible casting.
yeah. I mean, he proved people wrong.
It's one of the most controversial castings in a popular blockbuster you can really think of, especially at the time. I mean, it's like an outrageous casting choice. Like they were really taking a big gamble on this guy. Or Christopher Nolan must have known something that the general public didn't know because it really worked out big time. This is the equivalent, the movie equivalent of the Patriots drafting Tom Brady.
Yeah, I agree with
Like
that.
total shot in the
Seriously.
dark that worked out to give one of the greatest performances of all time. The GOAT superhero movie villain or villain in cinema history, honestly.
Speaking of villains, so we're gonna go to the rest of the cast. Dude, I just gotta say, how the fuck did Aaron Eckhart not have a bigger film career?
I know.
Because when you look at like all of these, I was literally looking at all of the Batman villains, just of the Nolan trilogy. Um, Cillian Murphy, he just gets this fantastic career after. I know he did a lot of character parts, but now he's like sky high. Same thing with Tom Hardy. Liam Neeson was already sort of established, so he doesn't really count. And then obviously Heath Ledger, he didn't have much of a career after this movie, but he was in big movies.
Yeah.
But Aaron Eckhart, like, god damn it, dude, he is so good in this movie,
Yeah.
and nobody talks about him. They're just it like I love the Joker performance, and he's really good, and he deserves credit. But he just like absorbs all of the praise from everything else in this movie, and I don't know, man. Like he's so fucking good because he plays two different people. He plays Harvey Dent, and he plays Two Face,
Hmm.
and he's commanding, he's intimidating, and he even holds his own against Ledger when they meet in the hospital together.
Yeah.
Like I was looking through his filmography, and it's just not remotely like he didn't make another movie even remotely close to being as successful. Like he was in Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino. He was in Aaron Brockovich, and then he was in like a couple other good movies. He was in Thank You for Smoking, which I've heard he was fantastic in. But after The Dark Knight, like I'm seeing a whole bunch of duds. Olympus has fallen, London has fallen,
He was in
Ambush.
he was in the Wicker Man remake.
Yeah, like are, yeah, and he's credited as the truck stop patron. What a fucking desirable role that is. But like, holy fuck, he's so good. And I don't even think he got nominated for any of these, by the way. Um, but damn, dude, like, I don't know. I think he deserved a nomination
Yeah.
because he is so fucking good in this movie.
Every
Like,
time I see Aaron Eckhart, I enjoy his performances a lot. Like in my opinion, he's one of the most underrated actors I think that I can think of that consistently gives out good performances. And yeah, he plays like two different characters and his character transformation in this movie is like outstanding. It's like Two-Face is a super hard character to play, I feel like. You really got to
yeah,
tap into some dark shit and tap into that whole transformation and evolution. And it's kind of hard to pull that off, but boy, does he do it. And he has some great lines in this movie. Like, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like, that's probably the most iconic quote or line from the movie besides, like, why so serious?
yeah. I mean, he is, damn. Like, I can't really think of anything he does that I didn't like. I mean, I will say I don't love the scene where they introduce him in the courtroom, and the guy
Oh,
pulls
dude,
a
that scene
gun,
is
and
hilarious.
then he just fucking sucker punches him, and he's
Yeah.
like, "I'm not done, Your Honor." Like, I thought that was fucking so
That's a scene out
stupid.
of like And Justice for All or something.
Yeah, that was the one scene where I was like, that could have been edited better. That could have been wrote better. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that wasn't great.
that scene's hilarious. I love that scene, even though it's like clearly the worst scene in the movie. He is a really good actor. Yeah, I don't know what the reason would have been for. Like, he has the leading man look, leading man acting chops. I don't know why he didn't go on to have like a similar career to like Josh Brolin or something. I feel like he could have done a lot of those roles.
Yeah, I don't know who he was competing against, but damn, a
Like
fucking what if.
he could have been in a movie like No Country for Old Men and gave a great performance, like as Josh Brolin's character. Even though I like Josh Brolin a lot, I see a lot of similarities in their performances. Yeah, he's definitely underrated for sure. And Christopher Nolan's got a good eye for casting because Aaron Eckhart, I don't think he was that big of an actor at this time. He never really got big. People
No,
like might know him, know the
I
name, but
mean,
that's about it.
yeah, like Aaron Brockovich, he played a supporting role in. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through his filmography. He was in The Pledge with Jack Nicholson.
Mm.
But yeah, he's just I don't know what it was. He just never took off. And he's not in a lot of movies either. So I don't know if it was just he didn't want to do it, but
Aaron Eckhart,
he could
Apex
have been.
Mountain for sure.
We've already talked about Maggie Gyllenhaal. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I
No?
I just for listeners at home, just go look up Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless talking about her performance. That's about it.
Fair enough. Gary Oldman, I think he's tremendously better in this movie compared to what he was doing in Batman Begins. I think like he's fine in Batman Begins, but he gets a lot more to do in this movie. Like obviously he has like family drama, like they're worried about him. They think he's dead first of all
Yeah.
for like 30 minutes of this movie, but also just like his character, his depth. He's with the Batman a lot more. He collaborates more often. I think it's really just a big step up. Whereas like when I think of Gary Oldman in Batman Begins, the one scene I can even think of is like he's like clumsily driving the Batmobile,
Oh,
trying to
that
like
scene
blow
is
shit
so
up.
stupid, dude.
But yeah, that's like the one scene I can think of. And I literally watched the movie a week ago. Like that's how fucking forgettable he is in that
Yeah.
movie.
He gets better in every movie in this trilogy. And I think he's the perfect casting for Jim Gordon. Like when I think of Commissioner Gordon, I think of Gary Oldman. There's not a lot to say about him. He just looks like Commissioner Gordon, like how I would envision him after watching like growing up the Batman animated series and reading the Batman comic books. Gary Oldman is how I think Jim Gordon would look like in real life. So just him looking the part uh sells it, and it's crazy how he played Commissioner Gordon and also played Drexel.
Yeah. No, he's versatile as fuck. I just
Yeah.
watched Air Force One where he plays like a ethnic double agent spy trying to kill the president of the United States. And he has this like thick Russian accent. And I'm just like, this guy like is allergic to a normal role. But I guess this is probably his closest thing to it.
You think Drexel's a crazy role? Have you seen Hannibal?
He's in Hannibal?
The Anthony Hopkins one, yeah. And he was like one of Hannibal Lecter's victims, and he like Hannibal Lecter ate his face off. So he's
Mason
com
Verger is what they
Mason
said.
Verger, yeah. He's completely disfigured. Like he looks so nasty. And you would never know it's Gary Oldman. It's absurd. Look, I remember I watched that movie years ago and I was looking at the casting and I'm like, "What?" I thought that was just like an unknown, like a random dude. I didn't know that was Gary Oldman. It's crazy. That guy was like the most open actor of all time. He's willing to take on just about any role. And he can play different races of person. He can play white and black.
See our True Romance review if you don't understand what Connor just said there. So I just grouped Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman together
Yeah.
I'll
That's
be
fair.
honest, like I don't know, they were fine. Like they really didn't have too much to do. I was trying to think of scenes with them in it, and with Michael Caine, I mean,
He's
he's
just playing
basically
Michael Caine.
well, it's just like his therapist in that movie. He's just like Gotham needs a Batman. Like he's
Your
just like
grape swishes, Master Wayne.
um Jesus, I forgot about that meme. But yeah, he basically picks him up whenever he's down. He's just like, whenever he's worried about like if Gotham needs Batman, he's like, God, of course Gotham needs Batman.
Yeah,
And
he's just the motivational speaker for Bruce Wayne.
yeah, he's fine. I think I liked him better in Begins just because he had more to do. Because like I think the Alfred part was just a bigger component to Bruce
Yeah,
Wayne than it was in this movie. And then Morgan Freeman, like I said, I mean, there's one scene where he basically just diverts Reese's attention away from the fact that Batman and Bruce Wayne might be the same person. Just like,
yeah.
let me get this straight. You think that a billionaire playboy dresses up in a costume, beats the shit out of people, like just I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but just like, and you think that guy's gonna give you money? And like that's about all he does. There's another scene where he has to spy on the city of Gotham with like their phone sonar systems, but I mean, like it's a very big cast, so I get it. Like you can only have so many people on one screen, but I don't know. I think he gets pretty reduced in this movie.
He doesn't have a lot to do. He goes to Hong Kong and talks to the guy.
Lao.
Um, but it's just good to see him. That's about it. That's all I had in my notes. There's really not much. It's just nice to see Morgan Freeman.
Anthony Michael Hall as Mike Engel. That's a crazy casting choice. I don't know if you know much about him, but he was like a teenage film actor.
I never
Like
have heard of him before.
he's in the Breakfast Club. Like he's one of those guys.
Oh,
He's
what
in
the
like
fuck?
16 Candles and shit like that. He plays Mike Engel,
I
which
don't
is
even
just
know
like
who Mike Engel was in this movie.
he's the guy who when the Joker is like, if Mike Engel isn't dead in 60 minutes, I will shoot somebody. I forget exactly what Joker says, but he basically like threatens that this guy has to die. That's like when the citizens of Gotham start shooting at him.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
remember that? Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a small subplot anyways. Um Nestor Carbonell is the mayor.
Yeah.
Um
Anthony Garcia, Mayor Garcia.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the same person, but I knew him actually from Lost. He actually plays a very big part in that show. And looking through his filmography, it seems like he's mostly known as a television actor. Obviously, Bates Motel. He's in 45 of however many episodes those are. But yeah, I mean, he has some movies, Dark Knight Rises,
Yeah.
Smoking Aces. But yeah, he's whatever in that movie.
There's a lot of guys in this movie that I feel like I've seen before, but I just can't place them. A lot of people say this movie is inspired by Heat, and it's known that Christopher Nolan, at least one of his favorite movies of all time is Heat. Like he moderated a Heat panel at like the Cannes Film Festival or something a couple of years ago with Pacino and Michael Mann and De Niro. So it's like one of his favorite movies. But when I think about how people say this movie is inspired by Heat, I'm like, I don't see it that much. Like I can faintly see it. Obviously, the opening bank sequence takes a
Yeah,
lot of cues from Heat, and it has William Fichtner in the scene. So that's a nice nod to the movie. A lot of the cinematography, which we talked about earlier, is kind of similar. Like both movies use a lot of like blue in the night sky and stuff. But and I guess Batman and Joker inevitably meeting up at the end of the movie, just like De Niro and Pacino do at the end of Heat to have the
yeah.
final showdown. But I mean, that's a lot of stuff, but it's not like a lot of people say this is like a Heat ripoff or it was highly inspired by Heat, and I don't see it that much. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I don't see too much in terms of similarities. I mean, I guess if anything, it would be like a lot of the trading blows with like the dialogue that they have. Obviously, De Niro and Pacino. That's like the famous scene of Heat, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of scenes like that in The Dark Knight. But I, yeah,
To get
I,
killed while
I
being a
think he just,
dummy. I
I
didn't
think
hear
he
that
just
line,
meant it.
anyways.
I think he just meant it in terms of like a crime drama, and obviously that's a very influential crime drama,
Yeah,
be it Heat and some of the other ones that he listed.
for sure.
Is this the greatest superhero movie ever? My answer to that is it is because it's not. I would really say that this is a superhero movie in name and image only.
Yeah, fair.
Um, I mean, I'm just trying to think of movies that are like dark and gritty and police procedurals other than the other Batman movies. Because obviously Joker and the Matt Reeves Batman are very much like of this formula.
Hmm.
And to be honest, like the closest thing I could think of was like the Blade trilogy with Wesley Snipes.
I haven't seen it yet. I
Uh
want to.
it's it's interesting. It's like still a superhero movie at heart, but it's a lot more. First of all, it's R rated, so it's not trying to just appeal to kids and
Yeah.
whatnot. And it's a lot darker. But um I was thinking of like that, and there's also a lesser known superhero, but the movie's known is The Crow
Oh
with
yeah.
Brandon Lee, which I don't know how much it was inspired by. I haven't seen the movie, but I know that's another example of like a much more grounded and dark superhero adaptation.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about your take? Is it the greatest?
Yeah, I mean, I was going through all the superhero movies I've seen and ranking them today, and this one is like the clear top. Like second place for me, I is a hot take. Probably I have the Robert Pattinson Batman as second place. But after that, there's like another wide gap. I'll have like the Avengers, some of them, and the Joker movies in the same vein, like you said, and then the rest of this trilogy fits into some of my favorite superhero movies. But yeah, I mean, it really stands alone. It is just like a crime movie with the leads just happen to be superhero characters. Like this easily could have, you could make this movie and do it with just like regular people, like a police officer and like a mobster or villain, and it'd be you it could work. So it's not just a superhero movie. It just happens to be like you said, but I think it's clearly the best one. And I haven't seen movies like I haven't seen Logan. I know that's one that a lot of people talk about. That's a great one. I haven't seen all the Marvel movies, but I'm guessing there's not going to be one that's better than this. I've seen the big ones. I don't think like Spider-Man's another superhero that has a lot of good movies, but I don't think any of them really come close to this. I'm not a huge fan of the Tom Holland ones. I know people love like No Way Home.
No,
I know
not a
people
fan
love
either.
Into the Spider-Verse and whatnot, but that's like a cartoon, so I can't
It's a
really
different
compare
movie.
it to this.
You
Batman
know,
versus Superman's also like a dark superhero movie, but that movie sucked apart from the fight scenes between Batman and Superman. But I think, yeah, Dark Knight's clearly the best superhero movie, and I don't know that there's ever gonna be anything that really comes close to it in terms of superhero movies. Because who's gonna beat? You got to beat Heath Ledger's performance, and no one's done that yet.
yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen.
We've seen actual superhero performances be better. Like I'll go on record saying that Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark is way more iconic than Bale as Batman.
Yeah,
I love Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man.
I think
And
a lot of
he,
people will point to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, especially in Logan too.
yeah,
Like
it's
they'll
just
really praise that.
it's just the problem is those franchises don't have the same caliber of director, screenwriters, cinematographers, and usually those franchises only have like one or two good movies in them. Well, Christopher Nolan pumped out three solid movies, two really good ones and one solid one. So there's a lack of consistency in superhero movies that Christopher Nolan kind of avoided. He was very consistent throughout.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement. All right, so On our next segment, we got the scoreboard draft and cut segment. We draft our favorites and we cut our least favorites. We'll see you on the next side. All right, welcome to our scoreboard draft segment. You know the rules. I think I had first pick for last episode, so I'll defer to you for this one. So, what is your first overall pick for this one, Connor?
All right. Well, my first overall pick is gonna be Heath Ledger's Joker. No doubt about it. The obvious pick here, the best character in the movie. Even though there's lots of good characters, this is the best movie villain of all time, in my opinion. Heath Ledger's one of the goats of all time. Villains in all of cinema, not just superhero movies. I think he's easily the best superhero villain that I can think of in comics, in movies, in TV shows, in everything. But what makes Heath Ledger's Joker so special, I know we've talked about him a lot and everyone knows about him, so there's not anything really new to say about him. But he does combine like the classic things about the Joker that make him so great. You get the humor, you get the new take on him, the realistic take, Christopher Nolan's take where he's an anarchist, which is pretty unique. I mean, we don't really see that in the comics before this movie. After this movie, we see it. But we're used to like I was used to the Mark Hamill Joker who would voice him in the comics and whatnot and then TV shows and everything. So I was used to that more like goofy Joker. So seeing this, the Heath Ledger Joker and him making it his own when people like Jack Nicholson had played the Joker and Cesar Romero, I'm pretty sure was the Joker from the
Yes.
1960s Batman show. They were just goofy and campy, even though they're still good performances. This was the first Joker performance in movies where it was like something different, more serious and more like gritty, realistic, and like someone that could maybe exist. Like he just is like a terrorist, really. I think it really paved the way for a lot of superhero villains and villains in general. Like, um, what's Anton from No Country for Old Men? I know this came before it, but maybe that was like some sort of prototype for this character. Also, the same actor, Javier Bardem, played a very similar character in Skyfall. And I'm sure there's other movie villains that came after Heath Ledger that are heavily inspired by it, but probably the most like inspirational or like most um critically acclaimed movie villain of our generation and maybe all time.
Yeah. No arguments there. For my first pick, people can probably guess it. I just gotta pick Aaron Eckhart. I think he's easily the unsung hero of this movie. I think that, like I said, the reason why he just doesn't get the attention is because Heath Ledger sort of dissolves his praise and his genius. And to any film producers, casting directors that are listening to this podcast, Aaron Eckhart's only 56, okay? Brad Pitt's 60. Get this guy in some fucking roles. Like, give this guy the career he deserves because he held his own against Joker. He holds his own against Bale, against Oldman, against all these guys. And after this movie, he just plateaued, if anything.
Yeah. Dude, he
And
must have went into an early retirement or something. I don't get it.
they either like must have dirt on him or like there's this Hollywood secret that I just don't know. Because this guy,
He must have got
no.
caught lacking at a Eyes Wide Shut party or something, or a Diddy party.
Yeah, he took his Two-Face role to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
He just transformed into a fucking supervillain, a
Yeah.
demon. But yeah, like, dude, get this guy in some fucking movies. Seriously, I don't want this guy to just be known for this role. He's far too good to just be known as Two-Face.
Yeah. Well, that's probably like I agree with all you're saying, but I feel like the average person would think that's a hot take. I don't know what the general consensus on Aaron Eckhart is, but like I don't know. Maybe we just like him and no one else does. I don't know.
But I guess it just was like as soon as Brad Pitt came onto the scene, any single time they needed a blonde, attractive actor to play this charismatic action movie role, they had their guy.
Hmm.
And I guess My guess is he just got outcompeted, or I guess I don't want to say outcompeted, but like he just didn't. The roles didn't fall to him, and it's a damn shame,
Yeah,
really. I don't want his fifth most known movie to be Olympus Has Fallen. That's just a fucking slap in the face to everybody.
yeah, that's fair. For my second choice, I'll take my favorite scene in the movie, and I know a lot of people probably point to the opening heist scene as their favorite, but mine actually is the chase through Lower Wacker Drive. I love that scene. I love the way that they shoot it. Like, who would really ever think to use Lower Wacker Drive? Like, that's the homeless capital of Chicago, basically.
Yeah,
It's like kind of creepy down there. Um, but damn, do they make it look like cinematic? And just the chasing the Joker in like the semi truck, shooting the RPG at the police, chasing him down. Like that's the moment in the movie where they really dive into the comic book inspirations. Like that's something out of a Batman cartoon, but in a good way, in the best way. Like that scene's not realistic at all, but that scene is amazing because that's what I used to see in the Batman animated series and in the comics and even like say a Batman video game. That's the type of stuff that'd be happening in there. So I love that scene. Just the chaos, the chase. Chase scenes are always amazing, especially when you have like the Batmobile. It's awesome to see that, or the Tumbler, I guess is what they call it in this franchise. And then the scene where Batman gets down after the tumbler gets damaged, he goes onto the Bat bike, and I think the Bat bike's super cool. I honestly might like it more than the tumbler. That thing's
I
really
agree with
cool.
that.
And I love how he's like weaving through the semi truck that the Joker's in. They're like going head on against each other, and he flips the semi truck, and the shot of the semi truck flipping over, like I think it's on Michigan Avenue.
Hmm.
That
It's on the
that's one
trailer
of the best
too.
shots of the movie. That's awesome. And it's like completely silent. Like it seems like there's no one in the city apart from Batman and the Joker in that scene, which is really cool. They have this little showdown on Michigan Avenue. And yeah, it's just such a cinematic, well shot and just iconic scene for superhero movies.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've actually driven down Lower Wacker Drive a couple of times, and that shit just gets me amped. I fucking I don't know what the miles per hour limit is over there, but I don't fucking follow it, whatever it is.
Yeah, that scene will have you driving like you're in the Batmobile, dude. Or that area will have you driving like you're in the Indy 500.
Yeah, I'm such a sucker. I know I'm biased. We're both from the Chicagoland area, but like, god damn it, dude. Chris Nolan and Wally Pfister really show that shit off.
Yeah.
Um, with my second pick, I'm gonna do the hospital scene. I think that that whole dynamic. First of all, there's the tension that Joker creates. He's gonna bomb all the hospital, or he's gonna bomb a hospital in Gotham, and he doesn't specify where it is. So like the entire like city of Gotham has to relocate all these people, and so you're wondering where is it gonna be. But then you also have Harvey Dent and Joker meet up for the first time, and Harvey Dent at this point is sort of teetering. It's here where he fully becomes Two-Face at this point. He transforms from the White Knight of Gotham to just a total bad person.
Hmm.
Um, and again, Eckhart fucking does it all. Joker holds serve. Joker explains the methods of his madness. He's like, "Do I look like a guy with a plan?" Um, and on top of that, you also have the very best. You have the improvised hospital explosion scene
Yeah.
with Heath Ledger, where he fucking makes all these buildings explode, turns around, doesn't like it, fiddles with the controller some more, and then blows it the fuck up even more, which just perfectly encapsulates. Like, I think if there's one scene you could point to and be like, I want one scene, I want 5 minutes that illustrates the Joker's behavior, that would probably be the scene I would show you.
Yeah. That's a good point. And That's also an iconic shot, or I guess
Obviously.
series of shots where he's walking through the street and tapping the remote to blow it up. But yeah, dude, there's so many iconic scenes and shots in this movie that there's like five you could choose from with no argument. But that's a great one. For my last choice, I'm gonna take another scene and I'm gonna make it be the Joker's first appearance in this movie. The scene where we finally really see who his character is, where
Oh,
he
okay.
walks in to the meeting that I guess they're mobsters. I'm not sure. They're
Yeah,
criminals. They're like
it's
an
Sal
underground
Maroni.
criminal syndicate. And they're talking to the Hong Kong guy on the TV somehow. They're like zooming him in the year 2008. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure how they're doing that.
that shouldn't work
Yeah.
logistically.
They got him on a fucking Zoom call 20 years before COVID hit, or 15 years before. So kudos to Christopher Nolan for predicting the future of Zoom. But I guess maybe they were using Skype. I guess that would have been around then.
Well, that just doesn't make sense though, because they're talking to a TV, and the TV doesn't have a camera or an audio speaker.
Oh yeah.
So, like, theoretically, Lau is just like speaking into the darkness. Like, he has no idea what they're saying or reacting. So, that's another, like, that's a small thing. I don't really give a shit, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
like, logistically, that scene makes no sense.
He sees the Joker walk in because he turns the TV off. So he knows exactly what's going on. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But I love that scene because that's where we finally get to see who the Joker is and what he's going to be like and how Heath Ledger is going to portray and give his take on the Joker. And the Joker gives all his hallmarks in this movie. He's crazy, he's goofy, he's silly, he's cracking jokes, but it's understated. He's also intimidating. He does the pencil trick, right? And I also love
Iconic.
just anytime he's like he's like, "You want to know how I got these scars?" Yeah, anytime he tells that story, it's completely different how he got his scars, which I really like that too. But that scene is awesome for showing the audience, like unveiling who this Joker will be. And I love seeing like the tough criminal's reaction to him. Like the one guy stands up and challenges the Joker and then sure enough gets his head slammed into a pencil, which is just funny and disturbing at the same time, which is the Joker, funny and disturbing at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fantastic pick. I don't quite understand how, because like I know that the Joker's not supposed to be physically imposing, so I kind of have a hard time believing he can just like choke slam somebody into a pencil that easily, but I digress.
I want to know how he got the pencil standing so easily. Like he got it so quick.
Yeah, I mean,
He must have
his
practiced that a
mystique.
hundred times.
I mean, I've seen weirder from the Joker.
Do you
Everybody knows
think
that.
do you think the Joker was like rehearsing that whole thing before he came out to them? Like was he in a back room like going through his monologue?
I mean, like you said, he doesn't have a plan, but
He's just improvising it.
with my last pick, I'm just gonna say the camera work from Wally Pfister. He was actually really good in Batman Begins, but just in particular, he's fantastic at showing off shots of the Chicago skyline. The action is just better. There's less shaky cam than there was in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And even like the Hong Kong scene, he's just he's batting 1,000 this entire movie. And again, like I'm a sucker, I'm biased, but I just got to give a shout out.
Yeah. Wally Pfister, the GOAT, one of the best cinematographers of the 2000s, probably. I don't know what he's done recently, but obviously he worked with Nolan for 20 years, 15 years.
He did a
Wally.
Taco Bell commercial in 2018, or he directed it. Sorry, he didn't shoot it. But
Interesting.
damn, wow. All right. Yeah. With that out of the way, let's get into the cuts. We just get one pick, same as above. Any aspect of the movie you want cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
So we've shown our fair share of criticisms of this movie, but if you could cut one thing entirely from this movie, Connor, your pick would be
Cillian Murphy, Scarecrow.
okay.
I know he's not really in it that much, but like, dude, cut him out of the whole franchise because they completely just
Watched him.
botched him. They
Yeah.
misused a amazing actor. Cillian Murphy's great in any other Christopher Nolan movie. He's great in most other movies he's in general, but holy shit. Like either use him to his potential or just don't use him at all. Like they kind of just shoehorn him into this movie. They shoehorn him into The Dark Knight Rises. Obviously, he's one of the main two villains in Batman Begins, but even then, he seems underutilized and kind of like an afterthought and goofy. But it
He's
should have been a great performance. It should have been great. He's a perfect casting for Scarecrow, but whatever they were doing, I just guess Christopher Nolan didn't buy into the idea of Scarecrow because he fully commits to Bane, he fully commits to Joker and Ra's al Ghul. Like they could have done so much more with the like hallucinating and the like poison gas and everything. In Begins, it was fine, but it could have been way more than it was. And like, why is he in this movie? Just to say hello? Like, was he just stopping by set one day and they're like, "Oh, let's have a scene with you."
I guess he just never got caught in Begins. I thought he did. Some people thought he died too. I wasn't sure about that either, but
His role is so forgettable. I don't even remember what happened to him in the end of Begins,
he
honestly.
gets tased by Katie Holmes off the
Oh,
horse.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like it's unnecessary, but I mean it's so minuscule. It does like take me out of the movie for a second, but
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure about this, but I think I finally got a decent one. I would say cut the Lau storyline. It's really not
Yeah.
that necessary. He's like the third villain in this movie, and he doesn't really do that much.
Yeah.
I was thinking about why he was in the movie to begin with, and my guess was basically Christopher Nolan just wanted to shoot that scene in Hong Kong where he raids the tower, which is admittedly badass.
Yeah.
I will admit, like, it's a very fun and entertaining action scene, but like relative to the story, the Lao storyline just adds an extra 15 minutes to this movie that I just don't think needs to be there.
Yeah. And also is probably included to add some sort of conflict to the Bruce Wayne storyline.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that too. Um, but the reason why I don't even know why he does that is because there's literally a news press where he runs, it says like he flees to Hong Kong. Or I don't know if
Mhm.
he flees, but it says he flees to go on vacation. And then suddenly Batman just pops out and robs this criminal associated with the mob, with Sal's mob,
Mhm.
and somehow people don't put two and two together. That's another nitpick. I'm not gonna necessarily call it a cut, but like some of the people, like how the fuck did they not pick up that Batman is Bruce Wayne?
It's the
Especially
same
when
way that they
like,
don't pick up that Superman's Superman, even though the only thing distinguishing him from being Superman is he's wearing glasses.
well, I mean, especially
Dumb.
just like the one part when Joker goes up to their house, to the penthouse, and these people are like, first of all, they're fucking on the couch, which is ridiculous because they get their clothes on, and then he goes into his lair, Bruce Wayne that is, and he's like, they're like, oh good, you've got a panic room, and then he shuts the door, and then out comes Batman to fucking save the day. I don't know how those people didn't put that together, but
I think they were just drunk or stupid or something.
both probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that two villains is more than enough, and the Lao villain is just, eh.
Yeah.
He's fine. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, so I'm not gonna like shit on him, but he's just unnecessary. That's about the best thing I can say about him. I don't understand why the mob is even associated with him. I guess it's just to avoid their money being stolen, but whatever.
I don't know. I don't really care enough to know. It doesn't really add anything to the movie, really.
Yeah, that concludes our scoreboard draft and cut segment. Coming up on the next segment, we got our superlatives, giving this movie the awards it really deserves. We'll see you on the next side. All right, so welcome to our superlatives segment for this movie. As always, we're gonna kick it off with the Russell Wilson Award for Who Let Them Cook in this scene. I'll let you go first for this one.
All right, so yeah, my pick for the Who Let Them Cook award is we talked about it earlier, but I think it's got to be the courtroom scene with Harvey Dent, where we first really see him exhibiting his justice. But that scene is goofy as hell. It's clearly the most goofy scene in the movie. And then you got the guy on the witness stand who's really giving his best attempt at a Frank Pentangeli impression. But the guy in The Dark Knight, he's just like, it was me. He's just a fall guy. Like there's just like a sudden change. Like he just drops
Oh,
this
okay.
stupid
Michael
thing.
Corleone this, Michael Corleone that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what
Yeah,
you're
he's
talking
just got
about.
like this Italian accent, like a goofy Italian accent. And then he just pulls out a gun, dude. It's so ridiculous. He pulls a gun on Harvey Dent, and no one in the room does shit. He's got the gun pointed at him for a good like 5 seconds, and there's absolutely no reaction from anyone in the room. There's tons of police and security, and they don't get to him until after Harvey Dent like punches him in the face. And I just think it's so funny that it's just out of the blue, Harvey Dent is like a master hand-to-hand combat guy. Like he just knocks the dude out in one punch and
Yeah,
takes the gun from him, no less. He just rips the gun out of his hand and socks him in the face like he's John Wick or something. But that scene is hilarious. And like whoever put the guy on the witness stand, who let that guy cook?
yeah, that's definitely a valid pick. I like it because it's funny,
It
but
is. It's a
um,
great scene, but it's so stupid.
I think it's just to show that like as a district attorney, he has like the public he's won the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
Like he's just like this he's this new man, he's this white knight of Gotham City.
He just walks in. He's like, sorry, I'm late. He walks in like 30 minutes late to the trial and no one bats an eye.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck, dude.
Yeah, but it is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine for Who Let Them Cook is just an aforementioned scene that I mentioned with Maggie Gyllenhaal and Christian Bale. He's just like so sappy in this movie, and it doesn't fit because he wasn't even like this in Batman Begins. He's just like preying on a false hope that he's gonna reunite with Maggie Gyllenhaal with Katie, or sorry, with Rachel. And even in the context of the movie, it doesn't make sense. If he's supposed to be so obsessed with her, then he should be like devastated about Rachel's death.
Yeah.
But instead, he's just like, he looks down at a couple metal scraps and he's just like, and then he's just right back to it. Like, he's not even like that emotionally devastated. And I'm surprised that Christopher Nolan, if he believed that this was the case, he wouldn't just have this scene where Christian Bale is like emotionally outbursting because he's certainly capable of doing that. I've seen him do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why, like, I don't know. That's just like, that's bad writing and bad acting too on Bale's part, but it's just
Christopher
a
Nolan.
synergy of bad.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan's really bad at writing romance for the most part and writing like
I mean, has
compelling
he?
romance or like compelling relationships between characters. I think he's just bad at writing like women.
I mean, has he ever? I mean, I guess like the closest thing to a romance he's had was like Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey. I know that like Anne Hathaway and Christian Bale end up together in Dark Knight Rises, but I don't know how fleshed out that is, obviously.
Yeah, and then Inception, you have Leonardo and whatever the lady's name is. Can't even remember.
Ellen Page?
No, 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 no.
I
No,
was
no, no. Uh,
Marion Cotillard.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She plays Talia al Ghul in Dark Knight Rises. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, that relationship's pretty good, I'll have to say. And in Inception, he does the relationship stuff the best I'd seen it. But for the most part, yeah, Tenet, I think he tries to do some. He's just bad at writing
Dude,
like
I don't even
female
remember
characters.
anything from Tenet.
Yeah, I probably didn't even comprehend most of what was happening. But like, yeah, Christopher Nolan's not that great at writing female characters. He does have his fair share of good ones, like I do like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. She's a solid character, but like for the most part, all his most iconic characters are men and
Yeah.
most well written.
The Shannon Sharp Nedcap Award for most out of pocket scene in the movie. What do you have, Connor?
For that award, I have we were just talking about it. When Bruce walks into that little room to get changed into the bat suit and the people are having sex in his bed. I think it's his bed, right? Is it?
Oh,
Or
is
is there
it?
no? Is it his bed or no?
I thought it was a couch, but I guess
I
I
think it's
wasn't
a
looking that
bed,
closely.
dude.
That-
I'm pretty sure it's a bed, but yeah, he just doesn't even care at
That's
all. He just
fucked up.
walks by them. He just like gives them like a nod and walks by them. He doesn't care. I feel like he should be pissed about that.
He's probably like just too worried about Joker to care.
I don't know.
We have the same scene. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's not too many like out of pocket scenes in this movie. For the
Um,
Shea Wiggum Award for who the biggest that guy is, I'm gonna have to give it to David Desmalchin, who plays Thomas Schiff. He's like an escaped paranoid schizophrenic Arkham Asylum guard, basically giving a prototype performance for what was to come in Prisoners, where he plays Bob Jones or whatever, or Bob something.
I mean, he's just been the GOAT bit part actor.
Yeah, and I think this was like his first bit part.
Bob
And what
Taylor.
a what?
Bob Taylor.
Oh, Bob Taylor, yeah. But what a first role to have. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he had smaller stuff before this, but like this was his first mainstream one. And holy shit, did he hit big time, dude. That's crazy to have The Dark Knight really be your debut. And he was playing bit parts for his whole career. He's still playing bit parts. He finally had a leading man role in Late Night with the Devil. But even then, that's like almost an indie film. Like that's very small. So, and I mean, everyone loves David Desmalchin. He's like one of the biggest that guys there is. And
Yeah.
honestly, you could probably
He's the
name this
GOAT.
award after him. If it wasn't for Shea Wiggum, it'd be him or James Rebhorn probably.
Yeah. I mean, there's honestly some pretty good ones. Like obviously David Dismalchin's probably technically the that guy. I also gave it to I was also thinking of Nestor Carbonell just because he also like in terms of film, he's really just known for this role. Um Anthony Michael Hall was also a nominee, but I actually settled on Eric Roberts
Yeah.
for this. He
Maroney.
plays or Sal
Yeah.
Maroni.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think he's just the GOAT crime actor for like
Yeah.
bit parts. Like so he was in uh Runaway Train, which he got nominated for. He got a Golden Globe. I don't know if he got an Oscar. Um he was in The Pope of Greenwich Village with Mickey Rourke. Um he's in The Expendables. He's in Inherent Vice with Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
Most recently, he was in Babylon, which I haven't seen, but I've like my friends swear on it. They love it. I know him actually as the serial killer in Star 80. He plays, I believe it's Paul Snyder. He's actually fantastic in that movie. Like he's really like he should have been nominated, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And most notable, I don't want to say most notably, but he's in Human Centipede 3.
Oh my God.
So like
What?
I challenge you to find an actor with that kind of diverse uh casting because that's
Yeah.
perfect.
He's got
Yeah.
some range. Holy shit.
And I mean his whole family, like obviously he's Julia Roberts' brother,
Oh,
which
damn,
is
is
like
he?
yeah,
Dang.
yeah, so he's got the acting chops and Emma Roberts is his kid.
Oh shit.
So like yeah, they've got acting chops all around, but
Oh.
I got to give more respect to Eric Roberts, and he's good in this movie. I like him as the mob guy.
Yeah, he does it well. He's good casting. And yeah, when I saw this movie, I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere, but I haven't seen him in any other movies, I don't think. He just has like a familiar face. For the Skip Bayless Award for my hottest take, I'm gonna have to say The Dark Knight features Christian Bale's worst performance as Batman and Bruce Wayne just in this trilogy. Like out of Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises, this is his worst performance. Even though it's the best movie. I think it's his worst performance. I think that'd be a hot take considering this is regarded as the best movie, but his character, we get the origin, we get the development, we get his morals, his code, ethics, everything in Batman Begins. We get him training, bulking up, becoming Batman. In this movie, it's not about him at all. It's really not. Like his character is like not irrelevant, but compared to the villains and what's going on, he kind of become takes a back seat to things. And in Dark Knight Rises, it's a great story of his redemption and coming back to save the city, which is like it's really, I think that movie is regarded highly, but not as highly as it should be. I don't think it's too far behind The Dark Knight, but I think it's by far his worst performance. When he's Bruce Wayne, I see Patrick Bateman, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think he's really giving too much effort as Bruce Wayne. And then Batman, I just don't buy into it in this movie. Like he looks smaller than he is in the other movies.
Yeah.
His fighting's not that good. He's stiff. Yeah, he just takes a backseat. You could rename this movie like just the Joker. Like just name it's a Joker movie with Batman in it.
Yeah, so you and I pretty much have the same take. I said that Christian Bale is the worst part of this movie. And again, like I don't like to say that, but I just think that when you have a villain as good as this, and honestly two villains this good, it's like almost like he takes a back seat in this movie. And also just like combined with the fact that it's a shitty Batman costume and Bale's Christian Bale. Like I just can't. I can't with that.
Sounds
And
like
listen,
Darth
like
Vader or something.
he's fine. I'm not gonna rip him. He's not awful. But when you're in a movie this good, I mean, shit like that shows up. Like you stick out.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I still think he's one of the five most talented and like one of the greatest filmographies of any actor in my lifetime.
Yeah, for
I still
sure.
think he's one of the greatest actors I've ever seen. But he's so vanilla in this movie.
Yeah.
He's so average. And when you're in an above average cast, in an above average movie, you stick out. That's the way it works.
He gets outacted by Heath Ledger, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
Heath Ledger acts him under the table.
Well, and I
It's
just think it's
yeah.
not even like I don't know. I don't like to use that term because like I think sometimes it's in service of the script, but I do agree. So, like some of the things like the line delivery and stuff like that, he just does not. He doesn't do well.
Yeah. But I mean it makes sense in the trilogy. Like this movie, The Dark Knight, is clearly focusing on Batman the smallest amount of all the films. Like The Dark Knight Rises is all about Batman's journey. Begins is all about his start. This is more just how can Batman respond to like the craziest threat of all time. But it's not even like focusing on his response. It's just focusing on the Joker's takeover. So it makes sense in the trilogy. It's not necessarily a bad thing. He's not bad in this movie. It makes sense when you watch them all three back to back why he's maybe not as great, but he could have been better. It's Christian Bale. For the Arthur Kirkland and Justice for All award for the most unintentionally hilarious scene, I
I
gotta
think we have the
say,
same.
what?
I'm guessing we have the same one.
Okay. Well, I actually have two, but I'm gonna
Okay.
say like anytime Batman drops a one-liner or anytime he starts yelling, like in the interrogation scene with Joker, he's like, "Where?" or something. Just when he yells, it just makes me laugh because he sounds so stupid. It sounds like he's just been like hanging out at Deadwood Tavern. His voice is completely gone. It's just bad. And then the also I'm not wearing hockey pads line. That is so stupid. That it just makes me laugh. But also I love the scene. It makes me laugh. I don't know why. But the scene when Joker goes up to Harvey or Two-Face at that point in the hospital and Joker has like the
Oh,
face
I know what you're
mask
talking
on
about. Yeah.
and like it's
And then
clearly the Joker. Like you know it's the Joker.
but he's
And
wearing a wig, Connor.
he thinks
He peels it off and he's like
it's like,
it's like
did you
trying to
not
kill
know
him.
that was the joke? Like Two Faces reacting like he had no idea. It makes me laugh every time. I don't. It was definitely not supposed to be funny. Like,
Maybe he requested that clown nurses be his only service in the hospital. I don't fucking know.
I love that scene. That makes me laugh. That's the best. But yeah, what were you? What's your choice?
For unintentionally hilarious, you already gave it to another award, but I just gotta do the one uh, where Aaron Eckhart just gives the mobster his meanest right hook. It's like, Your
Yeah.
Honor, I'm not done yet. I will say though, like it is shocking to see how different he becomes from like that comical, goofy guy all the way to becoming Two-Face. So I
Yeah.
guess that is like maybe that was the point of that scene, but damn.
Yeah, he's pretty terrifying once he becomes Two-Face, but I just can't get over when the Joker takes off his mask and he starts like just like trying to like jump out of the bed. Like he's so shocked that that was the Joker. I'm like, dude, did you lose your vision when he became Two-Face too? Like, what the fuck? That's clearly the Joker. Who else would that be?
Has he seen what the Joker looked like? Had he seen what he looked like prior to that?
Well, I know like the Joker was doing those TV
Yeah.
broadcasts and stuff, so he would have had to have seen it.
Okay.
If he
Yeah,
was the
that's right.
district attorney of Gotham, he'd definitely see. Maybe he was just like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this guy's crazy
He
looking.
just
But
he
the
didn't
Two
see the
Faces,
TV ads. People will die. Yeah, I mean it is goofy. I don't know why he saw that scene play out the way it did, but I don't know. I don't know if has Christopher Nolan ever done a DVD commentary on this movie?
I bet
I
he
feel like he
has.
must have
Yeah,
at
he
this
definitely
point.
has. But
Um,
yeah, moving on to the Adam Driver Black Klansman Award for Was He Really Acting? I'm gonna have to give it to David Dastmalchian again, just for completely going off the rails
oh,
and
okay.
like he just he's just laughing. He plays a very insane person very well, and he does it a lot in his bit parts to the point where it's like, are you really acting or is this how you are?
He only speaks once though, right? Like he's
Yeah, he
just
doesn't
like
really say anything. Like they're in like Two Faces interrogating him and giving him like the ISIS treatment. Like he's just laughing at him, dude. He could have played the Joker too.
I think he's like, I don't know anything. He's like he says something along those lines. He has
I don't
one
even
line of
remember what
dialogue.
he's.
Yeah, for was he really acting? I don't know. I feel like I have to give it to Ledger. I mean, obviously, like it's well documented that his role, like I don't remember all the things he did, but I had heard rumors that he locked himself into a hotel or something like that for like weeks and just isolated himself.
Hmm.
And I mean, he literally went insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. It says for a span of 6 weeks, he secluded himself in a hotel room, compiling a character diary and experimenting with voices, just all by himself, doing
Jeez.
that shit. And yeah, I mean, that would make me go insane personally. So, and I don't know, man. Method acting's a hell of a fucking drug.
Yeah. I mean, rest in peace,
Yeah, rest in
Ledger.
peace. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like gotta be, it's gotta be it.
Yeah. Yeah. The Joker
Um,
is a role that just takes a toll on people, I feel like.
yeah,
I mean, Jared Leto went off the rails. He was already
he was
weird.
off the rails. Yeah. And
Joaquin
Joaquin
Phoenix.
Phoenix lost like 70 pounds or something like that for that role.
Yeah. Let's see what Barry Keoghan does. He did
Uh,
Saltburn.
yeah,
That was
that
his
out of the way.
punishment. He did Saltburn.
You George C. Scott Award for overacting.
Um,
Hmm.
this one was hard to find or hard to think of, rather. But I'm gonna have to give it to Aaron Eckhart once he turns into Two-Faced.
Oh, when
He
he's like,
just dials it up.
"Typical."
Yeah, he just dials it up at times, but it's necessary though. It needs to be done. That's how Two-Face is in like all the comics and shows and everything. Like he gives a very
Yeah,
accurate performance of what Two-Face is like and all throughout Batman media. So it's really good and necessary, but he really can dial it up And it's the scene in the hospital with the Joker when he's like getting all pissed in the bed and everything, and he's shocked to see the Joker. So I'm gonna have to give it to that.
Hmm. The George C. Scott Award for overacting. Let me think. Well, hey. Yeah, I rest my case. That's gonna be fun. I guess we should put a just audio warning for anybody who's listening to that with headphones. But yeah, no, it's Bale. Like I think it's easy. I just think like the whole Batman portrayal in this, it doesn't ruin the movie. Obviously, it's still a fantastic movie, but oh man, he just, god damn it, he's such a good actor, and it just pisses me off that nobody told him, "Hey, dude, you sound stupid." Like you just, god damn it, I don't
Yeah,
know.
he
He just dials it
misunderstood
up
the
too
role.
much.
They didn't understand the role, I guess. He was just improperly casted, which is weird. There's probably a universe where his performance is like what Heath Ledger's was for Joker in an alternate universe somewhere, but I don't know. Yeah, the interrogation scene is great and iconic, but when Batman's yelling, it's like, dude, you're not intimidating anybody.
But yeah, that one was easy for me.
Yeah.
That was the award I spent the least amount of time on.
Would this movie be better with Casey Affleck?
Okay, so to be honest, I actually think he could have been a pretty good policeman for
That's what I
Gordon's
said.
staff.
Yeah.
I think like he's the perfect corrupt cop, like easily corruptible person working for Commissioner Gordon's precinct.
Yeah.
And it would have made sense in the context that this was movie was made in 2008 and he came off a Hall of Fame 2007 in which he did Gone Baby Gone, directed by Ben Affleck, and The Assassination of Jesse James, which he's also universally praised for. So he would have had the acting chops right then and there. He could have wrote it off into a decent supporting part. I don't know if there's like any notable policemen that work for the Gotham City Police Department, but if there was, dude, I think he could have been perfect for a role like this. And I think it would have made it better too, because I think the best parts of this movie are like the procedural aspects of it, just like trying to figure out the Joker's next move and what he'll do, even though he's so unpredictable. I think those, like, when it's that, I think the movie's at its best,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I had Casey Affleck as making this movie better as the Joker.
Oh.
I'm kidding. That would be horrible. But yeah, I was saying police officer for sure. Or maybe he could have done the David Dismalchin part, but I don't know how much he can really dial it up.
I don't know how crazy he could be, but as of right now, I would say it's better with him.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
and then last one, the Quentin Tarantino Award for Best Line of Dialogue. There's a lot. I mean, there's really a lot you could pick from for this movie. I settled on uh if you're good at something, never do it for free. I
Yeah,
just
that's
think
good
that like
advice from the
yeah.
Joker.
Yeah. It's either that or and I mean he follows that up by also saying like it's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
It's simple.
Uh,
We kill the Batman.
no, I mean honestly, you could probably say like half the Joker's like lines for this, but there's a lot to pick from, and obviously I'm curious to hear what your answer is.
Yeah. Well, that's you always gotta love the Joker quotes, and actually that is a good piece of advice. I know a lot of people like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker and use his quotes like kind of as a joke, as motivation, and then you got the "we live in a society" thing. But Heath Ledger was actually giving good advice in this movie. Like if you're good at something, don't do it for free. So you can use that in every bit of your life. So thanks Heath Ledger for that. But my pick is gonna be, I already talked about it earlier, but one of my favorite quotes from any movie I've ever seen is Harvey Dent with the "you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain." I mean, that's one of the most iconic quotes from superhero movies or any movie, I think. Like when I first heard that line for the first time, I actually heard it like a long time ago before I'd even seen the movie. And I'm like, damn, that's a like quote. Where's that from? And then I didn't realize it was from The Dark Knight. I thought it was like Socrates or something saying that,
Yeah.
or like Julius Caesar before he died or something. I'm like, damn, that's a deep line. And then sure enough, it's Aaron Eckhart who never went on to play another role after this movie. Um, yeah, I love that line. That's super iconic, and the dialogue in this movie is amazing. I'll have to say there's a lot of things to choose from, but I
Um,
think I think that's pretty clearly my favorite quote from the movie.
yeah, that's a very good line. I guess there's one last thing I want to talk about. So you did mention that the Joker gives pretty good life advice. There's sort of a debate that goes on about the internet that the Joker is actually a good guy in disguise. I don't know if you've read into that or not,
I've never heard that.
but there's just like, it's like, I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but I mean, there's people who say, like, there's an Esquire article, is the Joker the real hero of the Dark Knight? 10 most heroic things the Joker ever did. It's very odd. I want to read more into it before I talk too much, but that's like a popular theory that people have.
Well, what made him a hero? Like what
I mean, I would imagine people would talk about like
are they saying he's a hero in the same way that Tyler Durden's a hero? Like he just created chaos and rebelled against society? Like what's the spin on it? I don't
it's,
even know what you would say.
and again, this Esquire article is referencing like Reddit and shit like that. So I don't know how much water it carries, but they're like, Joker, although a lying psychopath, is actually the hero in The Dark Knight. Along comes the Joker, and by the end of a very short time, almost all organized crime was eliminated. Many corrupt officials were imprisoned or dead, and the city's vigilante even went into hiding for 8 years. This was all part of the Joker's masterfully executed plan.
So
Um,
what are his motives though? He just wants to see justice, I guess.
I mean, well, you can't. He's not gonna like psychoanalyze the Joker, but some of the other things that he wrote was planning to rob the bank so he could lure Lau out of hiding,
Oh, yeah.
or showing the citizens of Gotham that they have an incarceration and humanism problem with the movie's boat experiment, or using psychological tactics to reveal Batman to be a villain.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Or there's even this one anecdote where people believe that when the Joker's clapping in the prison cell about Commissioner Gordon's
Oh yeah.
promotion, that's actually like not sarcastic. Like he's being genuine about that. I don't know if I quite believe
No.
that, but
That's clearly sarcastic. He has like this shit-eating grin on his face.
yeah, I don't
Those
know.
are some people that have watched the movie like a million times that are like becoming conspiracy theorists. I think he did probably have some good motives in his mind. Obviously very twisted, but he probably
Yeah,
did want to see like a lot of the corrupt politicians and stuff go away and get locked up. But I don't think his plan was out of good faith. I'm pretty sure it was to be evil, but he had some good ideas, mostly bad. But and he inadvertently had some positive effects from what he did, I guess you could say, but I don't think he's the good guy by any means.
that wraps up our superlatives for this episode. Expect another blockbuster or just another big movie coming up soon. Thank you for listening to the Dark Knight episode. And as always, take care.